And I was like, wait a second. You don't get to use this, like, my talent and my soul and spirit to, like, further this thing that you're doing where you think you're better than everybody. No, you don't get to do that. You don't own me, actually. You don't own me. And so I just had to stop, push it all away. And I cut my hair. I had never cut my hair in my entire life, from when I was born. And because that's one of the spiritual practices, to keep your body pure and clean. And I said, you know what? You don't get to decide that. I get to decide. I shaved my legs, shaved my armpits. I cut my hair. I started eating meat. I pierced my ears. And I was just like, you know what? This is great. I like it. Guess what? My body's still pure and I feel actually healthier than I ever have.
Hey everyone, and welcome to another episode of Going Out Looking In, the podcast where we're exploring the human experience through conscious conversations. My name is Maxi, I'm your host, and today, I know it's been a while, we are finally back after a summer hiatus, and that is with a very special episode and a beautiful, beautiful guest who is Nirinjan Kaur. Nirinjan is a singer. She's a mother, she's a therapeutic counselor, and I am assuming, some of you who are interested in the spiritual community and especially spiritual music, medicine music, mantras, kirtans, probably, chances are, you came across Nirinjan's music and voice in the past. Her contributions to this kind of movement have been worldwidely recognized. She has been touring the world as a musician, as a mantra singer, as a medicine music singer, as part of the Kundalini Yoga and Sikh community, and it led her to the recording with Ram Dass and Matthew Schoening with one of the most, I would say, widely spread and acclaimed albums in that genre. Now, that being said, sometimes something is right in front of your nose all this time, and then it suddenly drops into you that, potentially there's potential for collaboration or whatever. And in that case, I've been listening to Nirinjan's music for so many years, but then it suddenly dawned upon me from one day to another. It's like, oh, right, why? I feel like she has really something to say that goes beyond singing in a singing voice. And oh boy, was I right with that intuition. And that is what we really unwrap and uncover in this particular conversation. Because as always, with the podcast, I am much less interested in what it is and like the topics of someone's journey and vita and the different stages, but much more about like who is the person, behind the music that we can hear. And that is exactly what we are exploring. Who is Nirinjan? And that leads us to such a whirlwind of a conversation and a beautiful journey of healing, of overcoming obstacles as a woman in a community such as the Sikh community, which I definitely don't want to generalize here. And that also is something that really Nirinjan is heavy on, to differentiate between her unique experience within this very particular set of a community that she was also being raised in, which then led to a very negative let's say trajectory, in the sense of that the leader of the community that she was part of was being accused for just completely inappropriate behavior. There were rape allegations and whatnot. And so that being said, that's her experience with that community. So I also, like I said, want to be cautious of generalizing, with these kind of like communities. But at the end of the day, this is her journey, and this is what we are sharing here. So her journey of like growing up in that community, being introduced to music through that, and then also expanding, traveling the world and meeting so many people and souls who are resonating based on the music that she was making. And then these allegations are surfacing, and her turning away and really exiting that community to rebuild her life independently as a woman, especially as a woman, being also somewhat, just like locked in a golden cage of, let's say, spiritual mysticism and dogma and all of that, breaking free from that, finding her voice again through different channels, and then also not only as a mother, but also then moving into therapeutic counseling, which prior has been very heavily influenced with astrology for Nirinjan, and then now she did a bunch of different trainings and is working now as a counselor with the family systems approach. We'll talk about that in detail and much, much more. So that's a very beautiful conversation featuring a lot of talk about music, what it does, the spiritual community, the pitfalls of being part of one, finding your voice again, coming home back to your true essence, and just a story of a very inspiring, strong, beautifully good-hearted woman. And I am glad, and I'm honored to share the presence and light of Nirinjan with you. So without further ado, wish you beautiful insights with this episode, myself and Nirinjan Kaur.
चक्रवर्ती चतर चक्र भुगते स्वयंभाव स्वभंग सर्वदा सर्व जुगते तुकालं प्रणासी ते आलं स्वरूपे सदांग संगे अभंगं विभूते चतर चक्रवर्ती चतर चक्र भुगते स्वयंभाव स्वभंग सर्वदा सर्व जुगते तुकालं प्रणासी दयालं स्वरूपे सदांग संगे अभंगं विभूते चतर चक्रवर्ती चतर चक्र भुगते स्वयंभाव स्वभंग सर्वदा सर्व जुगते तुकालं प्रणासी दयालं स्वरूपे सदांग संगे अभंगं विभूते.
Just invite us to, however is comfortable for you, eyes closed, eyes open, to drop a little bit into the vessel that is the body that is inhabiting this incarnation right now, and just to feel into how that's like. How is it today to be human? How is it to be Nirinjan? How is it to be Maxi today? Just sit with that for a second. And let the nervous system arrive and regulate, and then see what's coming through. So, dear creation, on this day, please facilitate a loving connection between Nirinjan and myself. Guide our tongues so we can speak what needs to be said, so we can hear what needs to be heard, and we can share what needs to be shared. Let this be a space of openness, authenticity, honesty, integrity, respect, tenderness, and love ultimately. Let us speak with open hearts and with the understanding that truly never really move alone. The ancestors are present with us, and we honor that. We honor the land we're walking on and the sweet nectar of life and all the gifts that comes with. The food, the people, the air that we're breathing, the water we're drinking. So with that, in deep gratitude, moving into this conversation, taking 3 deep breaths together, in through the nose and out through the mouth. So in and out. In again. And out. One more time. In, Anali. And out, Skilama. So with that, slowly arriving back into the space. Good to see you.
You too.
So, on this day, Nirinjan, what's alive? What's going on?
Well, I mean, my life is full at the moment. A lot has been kind of up in the air. The last few years have been such a big transformation, major transformation for me. And today, I kind of feel like there's, as with all of us, there's these different areas of my life that are all kind of existing at the same time, and I'm just aware of trying to show up for each area, and in that, I think between the session I just had and then coming into this, there's this feeling of like kind of remembering the big picture and like remembering who I am and how that I get to show up in all these areas of my life and still be who I am. And I'm feeling reminded of that at the moment, which feels good.
So what helps you to remind yourself of that essence?
Well, right now my counseling practice, because in the last from March of 2023 to March of 2024, I was in full-time school, training to become a professional counselor. And that was really, really fantastic. I felt like I was coming to this place in my development as a human being and my healing as a human being. And that course, it was intensive, full-time, like in person, practice training. And it helped me get to where I was almost like always trying to go. And it's the same place that I would touch when I was singing, performing on stage and teaching yoga, and I did astrology-based life coaching for 3 years, and I still do it. But basically when I was singing on stage or recording in the studio or rehearsing with my, bandmates or or doing an astrology, reading with someone, and now, doing therapy sessions with my clients. It's all the same core self that gets activated and gets to show up. And, it's the music is the place where it's been recognized the most, you know,
Yeah.
because we've never met, but you've heard my music before. So you've, you know, people who listen to my music feel that part of me, and it is me. It's who I am. And you know, when I'm in session with clients, they feel me as well. But that's so much more private. You know, it's more personal and private. And so I think when I connect in this way, in more of a kind of global, more public way, which is always what I used to do with performing
Yeah.
and singing as an artist. But it's kind of reminding me that, like, just because it's I don't know, it's like, just because so much of my life is private now, it's, you know, with the counseling, it's so much like this really deep work and this tapping into this deep place inside. It's so private and no one sees it except for, you know, me and each client. But I guess talking to you is reminding me that, like, oh, but there's this whole other side of it that actually has been very felt. And it's almost like, feel like someone's calling my name, Nirinjan. Just remember, you've got work to do. It's not just private. Like, there will be a time when you'll make more music again, and there's the kind of public side of all that too that I haven't touched in a while. So
Yeah, there's much to unpack there, and I don't go in with much of an agenda into these conversations, really. However, there is like an intrinsic sort of like curiosity that I carry, given also what you shared in the brief conversation we had prior to us meeting here, and the kind of situation that you are coming out of. And so I'm curious to explore that a little bit. Now, with what you just shared now, like, it's dawning on me that there's a major shift happening from, let's say, and I refer to that in my personal journey as the expansion and then the contraction. Just like, with so much in nature and life, and also with me calling myself an introverted extrovert, it's like both parts are basically there. And then I'm also performing on stage, I'm also writing music and doing all that, but then again, so much like retrieval and like being sort of like a hermit and want to be for myself. So what I want to ask with that is basically like, how was that, also given the circumstances and the reasons for it? You can, if you want to share a little bit about that, you're more than welcome to, but like that transition from like really being expanded and also like really exposed in that way through your music, and then completely sort of like going out of the spotlight and doing much more like internal work, and nobody really gets to see, so I'm like curious how you experienced that.
Yeah, thank you for asking. Yeah, so I was raised in the Kundalini Yoga and Sikh community since I was born. I was literally born into it. And my name was given to me by Yogi Bhajan. And, when I was born, to my parents, and I was, both my parents have always been Kundalini Yoga teachers and Sikhs. They not always, sorry, they were born, my dad was from Toronto, my mom was from New York City. They, were born just into kind of, just Western families of the time. Well, no, my mom wasn't. She was like, had a Greek immigrant family. So my heritage is like part Greek, part like kind of English and whatever. But anyway, in like the 1970s, they discovered, it was like the hippie era, and they discovered Yogi Bhajan, and he taught Kundalini Yoga. And he was a Sikh and wore a turban and was like, had a beard and was like, yes, I'm a yogi and I'm going to teach you this yoga. They're like, cool. They practiced the yoga thought it was fantastic. They're like, because they were hippies doing all kinds of drugs and stuff at the time, and they're like, whoa, this yoga makes me feel the same way as like mushrooms do. Like they're like, whoa, I feel really good right now, and I like the idea better of using my breath and posture and everything meditation to get there rather than using psychedelics, which can get expensive and physically challenging sometimes if you do them a lot. So they were like, cool, I love this, and it was just a real like medicine for them, the yoga. But at that time there were other spiritual leaders like Osho and all kinds of other guys around the time. Great, it's fine. What they all taught, great practices, yoga and meditation. Thank God oh my God, I'm so glad we got what they gave us, right? They gave so much to the West and to Europe and to the UK and Australia and Africa and all over. It's fantastic. But there's also like an inherent cult element to the way that they offered what they offered. There's a lot of like, it's like as soon as you bring in like organized spirituality and belief systems to a group of very open-minded, people who are seeking, like the hippies were, it's like seeking guidance, and they want to find a way to feel better in their world, and they're very open. And when you give a group of people, a whole spiritual path and technology and say, this is the way that you can get to be happy and feel good in your life, then they're like, great, then this is the way and the truth and the light. And they pick it up and they take it on and they just do it. Back in the 70s, we didn't know that there was any problem. Nobody knew that there was any problem with doing that. And I think that, in a lot of ways, it's great because it means that there's a lot more people who get helpful practices like yoga and meditation to help them to heal their body and their mind and their spirit, and that's great. But we're realizing kind of in the last 10 years or so, first major one was Bikram, when it came out that he was doing what he was doing. It's kind of like we kind of realized that there were a lot of these like spiritual leaders, men, that came and created just kind of, I don't know, what's the word, like just a giant following. And it happens a lot where just in our human nature, where it's like someone holds a lot of power and they become the boss and the teacher of all the people who are their followers, and all the followers are like, yeah, but we love this. This feels good. We're choosing it. We're choosing to follow you. It's our choice. And over time, they don't see that it's actually quite isolating. They end up being taught like, well, this is better. This is the best way to live. You're better than other people if you live in this way. And, this is the best yoga. This is the best meditation. This is better than therapy. This is better than anything else. This is the best. And these people here that you're with, they're your real family. Don't you feel like you belong? Don't you feel that? They get you. You get them. This is your real family. And it just becomes more and more and more isolated.
Are those are those the teachings? Is that what's being taught, or what was taught in the environment that you were in? Or is that more like a subconscious, is that like a literal transmission? Would that be the teaching? Or is that something that is sort of then what is being paraphrased by the people that are in the community?
I'd say it's more of a kind of subconscious side effect that ends up happening, but not always, not necessarily. If you speak to people who are really deep in those communities, they will tell you that they feel like this is their true family, this is their spiritual family. Many people that I knew in the community that I was raised in had basically kind of cut themselves off from their birth family, and some had even been disowned by their birth family and were like, well, that was and they changed their name. They're like, I have a new name now, it's my spiritual name. my family doesn't accept me anymore, but don't call me by that name anymore. They're not my family anymore. That was my old life. That was the past. This is my new family. This is my new mission, and this is where I belong. They would literally say that. And it's like, that's the environment that I was raised in. I was raised to believe that the spiritual family was and then it was my true family, and the mission of like Kundalini Yoga and even of Sikhism was my true mission. That's really what I came here for. And any of other personal things that I want, if I go after anything that's kind of more personal and not mission based, then that's really just a selfish thing. It's really not what I should be doing.
That was your personal feeling towards it, and
that was my feeling. But also, direct teachings came in the form of like like when you're teaching yoga, you're not yourself, you're this other thing. Anytime you're singing on stage, anytime you're chanting a mantra, you're not you, you're channeling this other thing. And you're channeling guru, you're channeling the sacred that's totally beyond you, and it's not you. And anytime you're meditating, you just, any thoughts that come up that are kind of personal, they're just distractions. And really you should just make yourself like a pure channel for this thing that's beyond you, because your soul came here and was meant to embody that. And it's like, it sounds nice because in a sense it's not untrue. Like you even mentioned in the beginning, like to have truth flow through us, and like that's the thing, is that it's not untrue. But when it gets too much, when that takes over and you don't get to be a human also ever, then it becomes a problem, because your humanity becomes very repressed and put into a little box, and put shame gets labeled on there. Shame. You don't get to be a human. You're only this pure, immaculate princess that it's your mission to deliver this technology that will save everyone who needs help. And I came to the realization, as soon as it came out that Yogi Bhajan was raping women behind closed doors, this teacher that I had been raised to revere, to worship, to revere, and sat on his lap when he was teaching, and like consulted all my parents and all my community family members that I'd grown up with. They would consult him about major life decisions and have him tell them what to do. I had been taught to revere him. Anything that came out of his mouth was the truth, that we had to just follow it, because he knew that he was enlightened and knew. And then I found out he was raping women behind closed doors. He was manipulating people. He was using money to pay for his like fleet of fancy cars. He was doing all of this corrupt, abusive, horrific behavior in plain sight, but we couldn't see it, because all we were trained to see, it's called brainwashing. All we were trained to see was his immaculate, spiritual channel beingness. And it's like all of the corruption became invisible. And it was invisible to me until I couldn't ignore the truth of what was happening. And then bit by bit, I started to see all the corruption that had been existing in that community, just trickling out from him in all directions, and how much it had been covered up. Not the technology, not the practice itself. I think that's great. The practice itself, fantastic. I think he did a great job in that area. That's my personal opinion. I think he did a great job teaching this like really powerful form of yoga that he kind of compiled and put together from many different lineages and types. And I'm like, fantastic. Thank you for that. It's fantastic. Also connected us in with this spirituality of Sikhism, which I also think is beautiful. Beautiful spiritual path in its essence, and but like there was so much corruption, and I saw what made me back away from it was that I saw that I had been without consent, I didn't choose this. I was born into it. Without my consent, I had been brought up to believe this lie that we are better, that we as a community were better than other people because of what we practiced. And to me, this was poison. This was the antithesis of what we were supposed to be, like what actually the essence of the practice wanted us to believe, which was
just wanted to say,
yeah, right. It's the opposite. But really, yeah, I was like, this is a contradiction. And we're not better. I am not better than anybody else. And I had always been taught to not cut my hair and not eat meat and not eat eggs and not pierce my ears or not get any tattoos and not drink alcohol or do psychedelic drugs or anything, to keep my body completely clean and pure so I could be this pure channel. And I was just like, wait a second. So without my consent, I have to be this pure channel, and to help all the other people who don't know how to be pure channels yet, and help them to be a pure channel, and I'm better than them because I know this. And like and also like I was making all this music, which I love. I don't regret my music. My music's, I feel good about it. And the mantras, beautiful mantras. Don't have anything against the mantras. I love that I made music. But they're like, Nirinjan, make the mantra music that everyone loves. It was like that. People in the community, they wanted me to make that music to bring people into the fold. So I felt like I was like, oh, I have to be this pure princess, pure channel person who delivers the sacred mantra, and that, and therefore I'm higher than like everyone else. And but it's like my responsibility to bring that. And it's like, I felt, it's like my face was out there, my voice was out there, and they said to me like, well, no, it's not you who's creating that beautiful music. It's just Guru working through you. So I'm like, oh, so none of it's me? I'm just a pure channel. So all of my humanity, I don't get to be a person then? So it was like there's this part of me that had to be like super high and pure and beautiful. That was a part of me, but everything else got exiled and repressed and pushed away. And I was like, that? And this part of me that was perfect and pure got used to further the mission of what they were doing. And people involved in it, they're innocent, they don't know. It's all just perpetuating this thing that happens with organized religion. It's not like it just happened in this community, it happened in many different communities. And I was like, wait a second. You don't get to use this, my talent and my soul and spirit to further this thing that you're doing where you think you're better than everybody. No, you don't get to do that. You don't own me, actually. You don't own me. And so I just had to stop, push it all away. And I cut my hair. I had never cut my hair in my entire life, from when I was born. And because that's one of the spiritual practices, to keep your body pure and clean. And I said, you know what? You don't get to decide that. I get to decide. I shaved my legs, shaved my armpits. I cut my hair. I started eating meat. I pierced my ears. And I was just like, you know what? This is great. I like it. Guess what? My body's still pure and I feel actually healthier than I ever have. Then now I can look, it's like now when I look back, I can see more clearly what was false and what was true. And I get to own it. I get to make those choices, not the people I was raised by.
Yeah, thank you for sharing this and going there with me, trusting me with that. I mean, Okay, so anyway, this is my podcast, and most of the people who listen to it, they somewhat, I don't know me, I feel like. So I feel like sometimes it's like important to give a little bit of context, but I feel like there's no such thing, or there's no thing in this world that is inherently either one thing, like either good or bad. Like we as humans, we give things so much meaning. I mean, I don't know, just look at money, or look at religion, or look at, you know, anything such as these things. I don't know, in and of itself, I feel like also the teachings that you just described that are coming out of the community, you know, they can provide great insights into the human experience and into our potential well-being. And then it's just like, okay, so what do humans do with that? And then and it's particularly interesting in what you've shared, because I find like the part that was basically being put into the corner and being locked up, like the human aspect of it, is what made the whole thing corrupt, which is a little bit like it's funny because like I feel like in a community or a movement where things like that would have been more integrated, the whole thing potentially would be healthier.
Yes, exactly. Totally.
Does that make sense what I'm saying?
Absolutely. I have this kind of thing that like if you repress a part of yourself and like lock it up, then just like in nature, like it will rot and like ferment and like cause, and it will like leak out and poison the thing. And it's like it can kind of, it will get perverted, if you will. Like it'll kind of get weird and twisty because you can't shut it down. It's going to find its way out and it's going to leak out if you don't respect it, because that's the shadow. Like you can't just live in the light and repress and lock up the shadow. You have to use the shadow. Is powerful and beautiful, and it's part of our human experience, and we have to include it. It's like the night to our day. You wouldn't have day without a night. You can't, then it wouldn't be day, you know? Like in photography and video art, you know, the thing, like everybody knows in photography, that like the light and the shadow is what makes, you know, makes shots beautiful. Is that it's the play of the light and the darkness. Like you have to have both of those present as a whole. Life wouldn't be precious if we lived forever, if we're immortal. Mortality is what makes our lives meaningful. And so you have to have both sides. Otherwise, if you repress the shadow, then it has power ultimately. It will take its power over you. You know, if you don't really go inside it, you know, it will. Have you seen the movie Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them? It's like that Harry Potter offshoot.
I haven't seen it, but I know which movie you're talking about. Yes.
Okay.
But I haven't seen it.
Oh, well, you would love it, and I can already tell. And it's like, because it's this metaphor of this like boy who is actually magical, like he has magical powers, but like everyone around him, he's in like foster care, and the foster care people are like, oh, those like wizards and witches, they're awful, they're like, you know, they're dirty, they're horrible, they're gross, they're dangerous, like we hate them. But he can feel inside him that he has magic. He actually is like a wizard, but he's like repressing that he's a wizard because he doesn't want to be hated and rejected. So he like locks it up and locks it up and locks it up. And the premise of the movie is that it's like known in the magical world that if you exile and repress your magic, then it will create what they call an obscurus, which is like this dark, twisty, shadowy creature that will escape without their will, like go and like create destruction. And so they have to like go Hogwarts and learn how to like harness it in order to be magical. And anyway, so cool. I recommend it.
And we see it around the world. I mean, honestly, we see it around the world, and it's that's again it's literally exactly that, like the thing that makes, for example, religious practices and religious ideologies and theories so appealing to people, meaning to break down the biggest questions and the biggest challenges of humanity in a very concise and simple way, and give clear instructions and a clear pathway to relating to yourself and the world. I mean, that exact thing is the reason I feel like why sometimes then on the shadow side things get so complicated, because well, we live in a complicated world, and also as a human, life is complex and life is multifaceted, and so it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, because on the one side, like I said, you know, in and of itself, when I'm reading the, I don't know, 10 Commandments, or I don't know, when I'm reading the Bible, when I'm reading the Gita, I don't know, I'm looking over here at my shrine, and I'm seeing all the spiritual texts and the primary literature of all of this. I mean, I don't know, to be honest, like I can subscribe to all of it to some degree, actually to a large degree, and then
Totally.
and then there's being human, you know, and then when I don't know, it's just like a little bit like you can't have the cake and eat it too sort of situation, and then spirituality also gets way, I don't know, then it's like, what about the nervous system? What about trauma? What about, you know, ancestral stuff that is like inherited, you know, within our system, which is not even mine, you know? And then I'm like doing all of these practices, but then, I don't know, there's just like stuff keeps coming up, and I'm just like, I don't know, I'm just like, I lived a young life and everything has been sort of smooth sailing. Like, where's all of this darkness coming? Oh, okay, well, maybe it's actually coming from down my lineage or whatever. It's just an example. But what I'm saying is just like that, yeah, the human experience is just very complex, and that's a little bit where it crashes with sometimes the very,
Like when if
Yeah.
it's kind of like they give a prescription that's like one size fits all, and it's like,
Exactly.
well, like it, you know, well, but you know, what about this? I try. It's like, well, you know, yeah. That it can.
So
Yeah.
what I wanted to ask you, like, just this is really out of personal curiosity now. So I'm listening to your music, and like now now I get to know more of the context. So now so like there's like an ultimate question that I want to ask, but I feel like there's something else I need to know before. So while you were making like the music that I'm referring to now, I guess like, you know, some albums and live versions that are very, very popular, I guess that millions of people have listened to. I guess like one album is the one with Ram Dass and Matthew Schoening, right?
Yeah, I
I
love
guess
that
like that would be,
Hamilton.
yeah. So that would be one that probably can be referred to when speaking about this. Like within the making of this piece of music, like how were you feeling about it when you did that?
Oh, that's a cool question. Well, that particular album, we actually recorded we actually recorded most of that in the Netherlands.
Okay.
It's kind of random because like Matthew, who plays the electric cello on that album, at the time, his girlfriend at the time was Dutch, and her family, you know, lives in the Netherlands, and it was so. And we just like he happened to be there visiting her and her family when at the time when we needed to like do the recording, and I guess it just, I don't even remember how it went down, but it all just flowed really naturally and worked out for me and Ramdas to just go to the Netherlands and record most of the album there. And it was that album was it was a beautiful time in my life because so like me and Ram Dass had both been raised within the kind of the Kundalini Yoga Sikh community fold. It's called 3HO. Was the organization that I don't know how we didn't know it was a cult when we were in it when it's called 3HO. Now I look back, I'm like I should have known. But anyway.
Well, that's the thing when you're in it.
You can't see it, especially if you're born in it. Like, hello.
Exactly.
But
exactly.
at the same time, I do have to say though. I mean, I don't have to. I don't owe anybody anything. But I would like to say though that Kundalini Yoga, as taught by Yogi Bhajan, is still taught very widely and practiced very widely all around the world. And I know, and I myself even practice some bits and pieces of it sometimes. And I don't want to. Anybody who's loves it and who loves teaching it and who loves practicing it, like more power to you. Like totally fine. I think it's great. So when I say cult, I'm speaking to the brainwashing that was very real, that really did take place in the inner circle of that community. It was very real. Many people were hurt by it. And but it doesn't mean that anybody who does that practice is like involved in a cult. So I just want to make that clear. And neither does anybody who's listening to my music suddenly involved in some kind of a cult. And it's not like brainwashing music. And so just put it out.
Yeah, absolutely.
But so because it's not like you said, there's always a darkness and a light. There's always a shadow and a gift, and there's a lot of gray area. Nothing's ever just black or white. So in my opinion, 3HO wasn't just a cult. It was also, it's also like a little pool of really cool, yoga and meditation teachings that you get to pick what you want and practice it and use it to heal yourself if you want. Like, that's fine. Anyway, what were we saying? My ADHD.
Like during the making of this piece of music.
Right. From within.
Exactly.
Yeah, how was I feeling? Yeah, so it was a cool time in my life because Ram Dass I had known Ram Dass since we were like kids. And we had been friends for many years. And he was great. He had kind of moved away from the community a bit and explored like his humanness and in his life more than I had at that point in time. And but he was still raised in the community that I was raised in. But Matthew's totally not at all. He was just not involved in the community at all until except for a couple years before when he had briefly toured with Sonatum. And that's how me and Ram Dass had met him, when he was touring with Sonatum Corps. And I don't know if you know her music. If you know mine, you probably know hers. Sonatum Corps. Have you heard her music? Yeah. So he was touring with her, and she and I are she's kind of like my big sister. Not actual big sister, but she's always been like a big sister to me, and supported me a lot in my career and in music, and I just adore her. Still to this day, adore her. And but yeah, Matthew toured with her. I met him through her, and we started. And I had already been working with Ram Dass a whole lot, who also has toured and still does tour with Sonatum often. And so me and Ram Dass and Matthew started working together. And Matthew, I guess just in working with him and Ram Dass, he kind of opened my eyes to like to like the world outside of just the mantra music that we're making. It's like, and somehow going out to Europe and recording the album, it like broke me open to like life outside of just this kind of like pure lifestyle that I was supposed to be living. And I was still in it. I was still wearing my turban, and we were doing these recordings. But I got more into the music of it. I got more into like the music side and like exploring different, like really exploring the musicality of it, which was human. That was part of my like human artist body person. I was like, my whole human Nirinjan was like, yeah, we like this. and I was like, it was so much more sensual, if you will, you know, it was so much more like just the art.
Through the earth, through the sky, through the water, through the mist in my eyes, your presence. Rising in my heart, singing through me. Your song in me is heard. I am, 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 I am. I bless myself, I bless myself, I am, I am. I bless myself, I bless myself, I am.
And that was the first album that I felt like I really, for the first time, I like tasted more of my artist side and my like my human woman artist side, that I was like, yeah, this is actually what I want to be doing. That door just got opened in that album, and it, if I'm honest, it was the process of the whole coming out of 3HO and into the place I'm in now. It kind of started then, and so then my next album, called To the Heart, which I made with Matthew, only because Ram Dass was busy with some personal life matters at that time. Matthew, while he was kind of just, you know, working through his life, and which he's done beautifully. He's a fantastic human being. Ram Dass is like one of my favorite humans on the planet, by the way. He's a dear, dear friend of mine. Matthew and I made a collaboration album called To the Heart, and I really felt on that album that I was really able to dive in even more to my like human artist side, like the musicality of it. That album has we did a lot of live looping. Matthew's like a master live looper, and I experimented with it. We did a lot of those songs that are on the album. We actually performed live many, many times around Europe, around the US, around Canada. We toured with that album a lot, and some of the songs we even wrote on tour. And there's just a lot of like, I really loved experimenting with the harmonies and different types of like time signatures and the looping, and I just really, I will say, even the song Suniye on that album is like probably my favorite song out of all the songs I've ever made. It feels the closest to my like musical soul, my artistness, and I want to make more music. I'm really excited to make more.
Goodbye.
So there is stuff coming. You're working on things.
I'm
Planning
not
on
yet.
working on things.
I'm
Let's put it that
planning on
way.
working on things. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I'm excited.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. I mean, like as a musician, lifelong musician, and then being fairly newly introduced to the sort of like mantra kirtan sort of situation, I stumbled across your music through my ex-girlfriend, and we shared many evenings just like listening, and she was spending some time in Bali, and then it's just like all around there basically, and then she came back and then showed me all of these playlists and stuff, and then all I can really say is just that that like you like the pieces of music that you did with Matthew and Ram that really stood out musically. And I love singer-songwriter and pop music especially, and how it like is produced has some pop qualities, right? It's like very bright, very crisp, and beautifully produced. And that goes for an album or like for a piece of music that in and of itself plays in a different genre and I don't know, is not in and of itself pop music or something like that, but then it is made with a sort of taste, and that's what got me onto it, when it's just like, wow, so this is not just guys, with like a Spanish guitar in a tent and a cheap microphone. This is like, no, but I'm serious, like this is just like, this is properly recorded and well done, but then also capturing the essence and the spirit of what has actually been said there and what's been sung there. And just being brought together in this beautiful like musical way and professional way, which is also always has been sort of like for me what has been missing and lacking. It's either like this really heartfelt, like you gotta be in the moment sort of situation, and then you're like in a tipi or like you're in a community and you're singing the thing, and so much of that going on also in the places that I'm living in right now. I mean, honestly, like the people that I'm like thinking about right now, like that are with me in these like environments, like and that I'm speaking to you, is like one of these like pinch me moments again, but like because we will literally sing these songs literally, and then but it's like it's very loosey goosey, sort of like spontaneous, and everybody plays something, and it's just like, some people will be on the drums, and then some people will be on the harmonium, and some people will, so it's just like all like a little bit more casual. But then for me it's just like, once I heard like the first couple of notes, I was just like, wow, this is just really beautifully made, and I was missing that, and that's just, I don't know, I just wanted to share that with you as well.
Oh, I love that. I'm so glad you did. I'm so glad you did, because I feel the same way. It's interesting because, the kind of kirtan environment was kind of largely how I was raised in that environment, because the mantra world is kind of, they're like, will you come lead this thing? And it's like easy, and everyone's just kind of improvising.
Exactly.
And don't get me wrong, it's beautiful. It's so sweet and so uplifting, and it's so much about heart and the presence of the people all singing together. Great. But it becomes something else when it's like there's also like, what about those of us who are like musicians and want to be musicians and want to like perform a thing, like rehearse and create and perform like a song that we made start to finish, that's like a work of art that we made. And it's like, so I had studied Indian classical music in India, and that I will say I related to that very much in a more musicality way, like in a more artistic way, like but it was the Eastern, kind of scales and way of looking at things. So that was great. I took to that like a fish to water. I loved it. But when I came back to the West, I was like, oh, but I also really like Western, like music theory, like really Western musicianship as well. And I like them all. And Ramdas and Matthew are like just exceptional musicians. Ramdas
Yeah.
has been
Yeah.
like, he studied clarinet, guitar, piano for years. Matthew, he can play the piano. It was funny hanging out with them. We all became very good friends, and we would be like sitting there, and they'd be like showing off. They'd like sit in front of a piano and like play a piece like backwards on the piano, and I'm like, you guys are making me feel really lame right now. And they are just spectacular musicians. And so when we worked together, they it was this moment where like my main instrument is my voice. That's what I do. That's like, I'm a singer, and I love to sing, and I love to put my spirit and my heart, my like whole beingness into what I sing. And I love for it to be a work of art. Like, I want to make it better, and I want to explore the harmonies and different, like I want to explore the world of each song. And so when I started working with them, they saw that in me, and they love my voice. And I know that like Matthew had been saying, he's like, yeah, I've been doing my own thing for a while, but I was really like, I've been wanting to work with a vocalist, And Ramdas has always worked with vocalists, and he also sings himself. But we had been working together musically for a while. So when we came together, honestly, I felt like they were so creative and brilliant musicians. And I felt like I would kind of come with like a simple song idea, and they would make it this like work. Their musicianship would fill it out and make it this like incredible piece of music. They would make it dynamic and beautiful, and I would kind of follow the trail that they set and add my own voice and be like, oh yeah, oh my God. And then what if I stick in this harmony here? Or they'd be like, wait, Nirinjan, what if you do this? And I'm like, oh my God, I love that. And I kind of, it was like we would all go, then we all kind of went together, but they kind of blazed the trail of musicianship. They're way more trained than I am in music theory. And
Of course, yeah, and it all comes together. Like, that's what I'm, because like, like I literally hear Rick Rubin's voice in the back of my mind. It's just like, it just doesn't matter, it just kind of gotta come from the heart, and that's what he will always say, and I agree, it should come from the heart. And also the, how virtuous you play, it doesn't really matter if it doesn't come from a place of like feeling and stuff. But then again, if someone can do both, and it's just,
that's
to me personally, I'm just like, oh my God, listen to that reverb on that guitar, and it's just this atmospheric, and then there will be like, like you said, the harmonies coming in, and then, oh my God, it's just so beautiful.
It's a music-gasm. It's a music-gasm.
Mm-hmm. Yes, totally. So, yeah, I had to get that in there and just like talk a little bit about that with you, because like, I guess it's literally millions of people listening to that. Literally, like, it's not, I'm not the only one, so I'm not the only one who resonated with that. And you, I don't know, like, so, in some way you made that accessible also to a lot of people who I guess otherwise wouldn't have been like into kirtan or mantras. And so there is a lot of service in it as well, although it probably came also from a place of like that you intrinsically really wanted to do it and also got something out of it, as I understand it. But I just also want to speak for the community of us listeners. It's just like, oh yeah, thank you that you did this.
Thank you. Oh, I love hearing that. And to be clear, I did want to do it the whole time.
Mm-hmm.
And and I don't regret any of the music. And yeah, it's an interesting thing that you bring up, because it really was it was kind of a bridging of worlds, There's, because it's like the spiritual, there's like the mantra and the like meditative experience, and then there's like the artist, like just good music, like experience. And interestingly, that's actually a perfect metaphor, and not even metaphor, it actually is in reality what I was struggling with personally, right? Because I was like, oh, I'm just this pure mission. It's just my mission to be this pure princess who delivers this pure. I don't cut my hair. I don't eat meat. I don't drink. I don't do anything. And I'm just all and I'm totally pure. And this is my mission to be this pure person. And you know, the thing is that that is my spirit. That is my core self. Like I am that. I do it's like when people listen to the music and they're like, well, but I just felt this like divinity come through your voice. I'm like, cool. That's not me. It is yeah.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
yeah, that was coming through. I was revering that and being a sacred channel. Like, yeah. But then also I'm being a human, like woman with a body who like enjoys, who's like an artist and who has like, likes stuff and like likes certain sounds and likes to do stuff and doesn't like other things and and I brought those two things together in my music, but they weren't together in my personal life.
I understand. Yes.
They weren't. And it's interesting because it's like everyone else could hear that I brought those two together, but I wasn't together. There was always a duality inside me. And I've had to just push away that kind of sacred pure channel part because it got overdeveloped. It was like overdeveloped. And now I'm, trying to really develop that human side of me that's just the artist and the musician. But it's weird because people are like, but we've heard you do both, but we want you back. Are you going to make more music? We want what you were doing before. And I'm like, I don't know how to do that yet in a way that's authentic for me. I don't know how. I haven't developed this side enough yet to understand how to create something that's authentic for me. I will. I know I will. But it's a process.
Yeah. And take your time with it. Like what's the rush?
No, there's no.
I mean, and the music will not go anywhere, and you impacted and still impact like many people's life with the music that you have done. And and I wanna give you some space, if you're up for it, to speak a little bit on, because honestly, like looking at it from the outside, as an empathetic young man, I'm just like, oh my God, like if I was to walk in your shoes and I think about how it must have been for you growing up in a community like that, where also correct, like this is how I understood it, like your biological family was also in it,
Yes.
in the community. So it's all that you've ever known, and probably a lot of people that you have, known and called friends and stuff were in it as well. To somewhat, and I'm not even speaking about like exiting it. I'm not even speaking about like anything like radical like that. I'm just saying potentially questioning things, doing things slightly different, just like doing something along those lines must already, be potentially dramatic and sort of like, really make some waves. So, and now seeing and hearing you, I get the energy that, a lot more happened than just like questioning it. You really followed it up with action, and, you made clear decisions and moved on into a different direction. So I don't know. I just want to open up the space for you to talk a little bit into how that experience was to, go a different path, and, what kind of resistance you potentially have been met with, and how you were feeling during that process.
Of like leaving the community, essentially, like doing things differently. At the time it was going on, there were a lot of, because it was right on the tail of everything coming out with Yogi Bhajan, all the corruption coming out, there were a lot of people that I grew up with that were doing the same thing. There's kind of like a mass exit of a lot of us. So I wasn't alone in that, which made it a lot easier. Yeah, that made it a lot easier. I will say it was definitely traumatic in the sense that everything that had meant safety and security to me, like as a like foundational belief system, what I believe about life, what I believe about myself and my body, and what my sense of purpose is, because I was married at that time and I have 2 children, and I was my whole entire belief system and sense of purpose was woven into that community and the belief system of that community. So having that be, so intensely falsified all in one go was like, it was very, I had to, I really had to lose a lot. I had to let a lot go. And there were a lot of like friendships and relationships that had to go with it. Not because of the kind of obvious answer of like, oh, they wanted to stay in the community and keep believing that, and I didn't. It was actually most of the relationships that I lost were people who were also leaving it, but we had been too much in it together. Like that we couldn't like keep being friends. Like it would just remind us too much of everything. Like I don't even know why, but we all kind of had to blow apart. And I lost so much of my community. And
how did that feel?
Also, it was very, very sad and very lonely. And I divorced from my husband just a couple of years ago. We separated and then have been getting divorced. And it was like everything went down in 2020 with Yogi Bhajan, and then 2 years later, my ex-husband and I separated, and that was the big one. That was the big loss, because it was not only just my community, but my family. I also had to lose my family unity, not because he was staying in the community or anything, but it was like too much. There was too much transformation and too much, like we had to find who we truly were for the first time. And all of us friends and partners and husbands and wives, it was like too much to try and maintain this relationship that had been built upon our being who we thought we were supposed to be. And so it was just tremendous amounts of loss, tremendous amounts of grief, a lot of just the trauma of losing, the kind of schema, if you will, that I had of the world having to be broken and recreated. I've struggled with a lot of anxiety to the level that I had never experienced in my life before. And just depression and dissociation and, insomnia and, eating habits changing and just hormonal difficulties. Just, it was not gonna lie, like I was ravaged by it. But at the same time, empowered by it in a huge way. Especially because it was really the first time in my life that I chose the life that I wanted for myself.
So what did the new Nirinjan gain from this experience? What did you learn and took from it, which is now part of who you are and how you live your life?
Yeah, I'd say it's ongoing. The answer to that is ongoing. But I'm learning more and more about what I found through the reflection of like my counseling training program that I took. It really helped me to kind of consolidate myself, and seeing the therapist that I'm seeing, who's a fantastic therapist, and also then of course starting my practice as a therapist has been, it's like my clients, it's like I'm learning about myself through the reflection of working with my clients and supporting them. It's like I learn from them all the time, and I'd say the biggest thing that I've learned is about, like, I'm just gonna say, like, how trauma works. I feel like my experience of learning the complexity of the kind of cult abuse that I endured by being kind of used, but then also this traumatic experience of having my whole life falsified and having to rebuild. It's like having it ripped away, and all of these experiences that I have, or these symptoms that I've had, are both PTSD and grief related. And I've done a lot of learning about IFS therapy. I've studied it quite intensively, internal family systems therapy, which I love. And I love it as a framework and a way of working with myself and people. But I've really learned, to view, well, first of all, I've learned how strong and powerful I really actually am. And I chronically thought I was quite weak, and that I was stupid, and weak and stupid, and kind of like just like ugly, and like like this feeling of like I'm whatever people think I am. It's like the imposter syndrome. Whatever people think I am, I'm not really that. Really, I'm this human thing that I shoved into this box, that I think is weak and ugly and small, and I'm like afraid of its power, because if it gets out, it's gonna poison everything. And I've learned through my work with people and through my work in the therapeutic community that it's very common for CPTSD, is that for people to have this inherent distrust in themselves and think that like, whoa, like, oh, really, if anyone could really see the real me, then they'd see that I'm just this weak, broken thing. And that when it comes to trauma recovery, that I've really learned that actually it's about rebuilding your sense of self, and opening those places where you think you're so weak, and you think all these things, and just claiming them, not releasing them so much, so to speak. There are burdens, of course, in there that are false that you can release, but you don't get rid of those parts. It's about claiming actually the truth, which is how beautiful and strong and powerful you really are, and making space for that. And I know that the music that I make is going to come. It's going to come from there. It's going to come from that experience, and that's the sacredness that I'm going to bring in. I know it. That's what I've learned. I've learned that if I can get through what I went through in the last 4 years, then I can get through anything. It's even if it's I get paralyzed in a wheelchair and all I can move is my head, I know that there's this infinite strong part of me that will always be there. And so, but it's a process, and I'm still on that journey. And if you asked me to sing a song right now, I'm still I don't know. I'm still I don't know, I haven't figured it out yet. But but I want to, and I will say that what I need is like I really need people to play music with. You know, I that's what I need. I need people to collaborate with. I need musicians that are creative and open, that I have chemistry with, to like collaborate with, because I'm ready to create, and I create best when I'm creating with other people, and I'm ready to do that. So I'm just going to put that out there publicly now into the universe.
Yes, here we go.
Yeah.
It's happening. Well, I mean, that's a different conversation then. It's between you and I. I feel like there's actually some things that can definitely, being involved in the community and stuff like that's a different. But that's I will. I'll share something with you later on. And then I just wanted to say, like, I get such, like, I just offer this now. I get such a different energy from you. Like, it's crazy. Actually, in the preparation for this, I don't even know when that video was recorded. Like, I saw you instructing some meditations and some yeah, it was meditations. It was not yoga. No, it was meditations. Some prayer situation. And what you just said, like, it ties very nicely into that. And when I feel into the energy of like how what was coming through then and how you're coming through now, like, it's night and day. Like, there's such a big difference. So I just want to like mirror that back, that I feel like there's like the shackles really have come off, like, big time, I feel like. And
Thank you.
and I don't know, like, I just can't wait, because, like, given that I am and was so moved by everything that I heard from you back then, can't imagine what it must be now. So
Oh,
based on
oh, that's so nice. Thank
yeah,
you.
so
Thank
I just wanted to also offer that and mirror that back to you. And
I really
also, in
appreciate
the preparation for the podcast, I heard you talk a little bit about on another podcast about the counseling stuff that you do, and I guess it makes a lot of sense now, given your history, because you in that interview, you seemed very, like, particular about, like, the trainings you did and why you did that and why you think that it's actually important to do training and to be, like, knowledgeable about the things that you're speaking about and the spaces that you create and the intention behind it and stuff. And then I was like, all right, she's really onto it. Like, she really wants to make that point clear, like, that it's actually for her, like, very important. And then, I saw the bigger picture. I'm just like, yeah, okay, like, it does make a lot of sense when there's people, up on a pedestal talking to people about something that they maybe sometimes don't even really live themselves or don't really know about. So having said all that, I just want to move the conversation a little bit into the part, like, into the human that you are today and what you are doing and offering now in the counseling field, and just, I don't know, really open up the space in, like, astrology-based life coaching, anchored therapeutic coaching that you're doing, right? Yeah, counseling that you're doing. So, why is that something that is important to you? Why is that relevant to you? Like, why are you doing this, and what exactly are you doing? Yeah.
Oh, okay. I'm
Yeah.
gonna rein my brain in, because I could talk for a while about that. Very concise. So okay. So when I mentioned this a little bit at the beginning of the interview as well, but I'll mention it briefly again. So when in the past, whenever I was on stage performing, which I want to do again, I miss it. It's so lovely. But yeah, whenever I was on stage performing, I would close my eyes and I would just open this space. It's like this right from the heart. For those of you, for anybody who knows about polyvagal theory, it was just ventral vagal energy all the way, and I would just imagine, like I would just feel the space of the audience, feel like every human being that was in the audience and that was on stage and that was doing sound and that was, I'd feel their energy and I would just sing, like I would sing directly to, out of love, like for them. And like as I would sing, like there would be almost like energy that would come up, like I would sense like if there was a kind of like a down, like a sad energy or like a excited energy or something, it would kind of like float up, if you will, from the audience. I wouldn't like see it, but I would just feel the feelings of the audience. And I would just sing to it. Like I would sing, imagine my voice just singing to that thing until it was joined the love. And it would like deepen, and as the space would go on throughout the show, like it was like me and my band and the audience would go on this journey together. And it was like this healing journey where we'd get to the heart, which is why I named my album To the Heart. And so when everything crashed and burned in 2020, I was like, oh, I don't have an ability to do that right now. And it didn't feel right for me. It was like not working because I was needing to separate. I was working with this astrologer woman who's fantastic, such a great like intuitive astrologer, and I had a session with her every month for like a whole year. And I was like, wow, astrology is so cool. And it was cool because it taught me about, I'm also like just kind of a philosopher and a deep thinker. It's, I love doing that. And it taught me so much about archetypes, like the kind of universal archetypes that are present in our human existence. And like it helped me to understand the human condition better, the human condition, right? The kind of like the shadowy parts and the sweet, lovely, ethereal parts, like the whole zodiac. Just it's almost like a map of understanding the different parts of all of our humanness. I was like, this is great. And so I immersed myself in study of astrology, and I started offering readings to people. And I found that when I did those astrology readings, when I was connecting to people one-on-one, that same thing that would turn on when I was performing, where I would like feel into the audience, and I would feel their energies coming up, and then I'd sing to it, and it would, I was like, oh, that same heart space and that same like skill that I had to do that came online when I was doing astrology readings with people. And I would like get these, I would like know things, just I would look at their chart and look at them, and I'd really just start to see them and tune in deeply to who they were and to their life, and kind of go inside their life with them and help reflect to them like what I saw about who they were and how awesome they were, and also how their challenges are fodder for their, like fuel for their fire to create who they are. And people really were loving it and felt really seen and heard. And but then
would there be like a bodily, would there be a bodily sensation? Would it be, what's the texture of that? It's just like, is it an intuition? Like, how does that feel in your, yeah, right.
I mean, yeah, sometimes it comes up in physical sensations, but usually it's like, usually it'll come to me in like just feeling an emotion and metaphor. A metaphor is something that comes up often. I'll get like a metaphor will pop into my mind, and explain it to the person, like, is this right? Is this what you mean? Is this how you feel? And then, yes, yes. And then I'll kind of just get this, this intuition of, I'll just feel who they are and reflect their self back to them. That's all. It's all inside them. All it is, it's inside them. And I would just like love them and let them know what I see. And then they'd wake up. And then it was like, oh, then they'd know what to do. But people would start coming, and in that space, they'd start opening up about traumatic things that had happened to them, or, really, struggling with like high levels of anxiety or depression, or, other sort of really intense life things that I knew that they needed ongoing support with. And I was like, all I could offer was like epiphany. All I could offer was like, the information that I was giving in the astrology chart. But I knew there was something inside me that I was like, oh, but I could accompany them further into themselves. And if I knew how, if I had the training, then I could really help them therapeutically. And I was just like, I got to do it. Why am I not doing it? And I realized it was because of this like, story about me being like too weak and too stupid. I couldn't be a professional. I'm just too weak and stupid, and I don't know that stuff. I'm not disciplined enough. And I was just like, that's actually entirely untrue. I can be a professional if I want to. And I was like, how about I try it? And I got a student loan, and I signed up for this program, and I did full-time school for a year, and it was just like amazing and awesome. And I had to do all this reading and all these assignments, and it was crazy, and school's nuts, and I did it. And then it was like this incredible journey into understanding, because all of the therapeutic stuff I was learning to be a therapist, the first thing I had to do was learn. So I was my first patient.
There you go.
Yeah, and now when I'm in the counseling space with people, it's just like it's almost like I've always loved singing, but then when I got music training, and then I got a band, and then I got put on stage, I can do the thing. Yes, I can do it. Now I feel like that with counseling. It's like, I've always had this part of me that I've known I can do this. And it's the same thing as music, but it's just the personal, private side of it. Same exact thing that I'm doing when I'm recording and making the music, exact same thing, but I'm doing it like personal, one-on-one. And oh my God, it's incredibly, incredibly healing and beautiful. Like, I'm not saying like just for the clients, I'm saying for me, doing it, like going there with people. Now I know I have the tools, I've been trained, I now know what to do. Like, it's like, someone brings up this dark thing, like, great. I know how to lead them back to themselves. Even if it takes like 10 sessions, it doesn't matter. Who cares? 20 sessions, I don't care. I want to go in with them because I love them, and I want to be in that journey with them because I've been on that journey, and I'm still on that journey. And holding hands with people and helping them through is just like the most fulfilling, beautiful experience that I can possibly describe.
Yeah, it comes across, definitely. Wow.
That's a lot of words.
Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. Do you like I mean, you stated that, you miss being on stage. You stated that, you miss making the music. Yeah, if I may ask this, like, and I do this consciously a little bit provocative just to,
it's okay. I don't mind.
Because like for me, it's the same. Like that's the biggest internal piece I'm working on right now. It has a lot to do with also like sharing from a full or like an empty cup. Why am I doing anything in the world? What's the intention behind it? What role does my ego play in all of this? And making friends with it as well, like, and integrating it, and not like just like push it away and disassociating from it. So that being said, do you miss like do you miss the cheering crowd? Do you miss any like do you miss what that life brought to you? Because if at all, I guess there's one person cheering now in the therapy session, and probably they don't cheer. I don't know what they do,
No,
but and so I
usually,
would like
usually they just kind of feel okay. It's like,
exactly.
I feel fine. I'm like, yes! Woo! I'm the one doing the cheering.
No, but that's like it totally like I mean on a deeper level, I guess it's sort of like if you're sharing from the right reasons, also as a musician, I guess it's the same. But I just know how thin the line can be of like actually being nourished from the outside while I am not as full inside. And then there is an energy exchange happening in that way. But it's not lasting, it's not sustaining me for a prolonged period of time because, yes, the root cause is elsewhere and it's empty. And I don't know, I don't know if you want to speak on that a little bit, I would be curious.
Oh, what a cool question. I like that one. That's a good one. Yeah, there is. I mean, who doesn't want to be like cheered for and like, you're on stage and everyone's like standing ovation and people come to you with tears in their eyes. Thank you. You're so beautiful. I mean, who doesn't want that? Right? It's like, okay. Well, thank you. Okay. But I think that I experienced that for many years because I remember the first album that I ever made was Aquarian. It's a sadhana album. And it was like, within the community, I would go to like events or whatever, and people, like, I couldn't literally walk from one like event tent to another tent without being stopped and someone being like, oh my God, that sadhana album that you made, it healed me so deeply and it changed my life. And I'm like, oh, like, but that was when I was 17. So like from when I was 17 up until I was 27, 30, it's like 13 years of that. And what I found was that like at first I would get kind of like if I performed and people didn't come up to me afterwards and say, oh, that was so beautiful, that was so amazing, I would be like, oh, I must have been bad. I must have been bad. It's like nobody, they didn't like cheer me and like say how amazing and life-changing it was, so I must be just nothing. Oh, they must be discovering who I really am, which is a fraud. Oh, wow. And in the beginning I was just kind of, and then I would like use, be like, oh, well, I would use the other people, the audience, as kind of a reference. So if they said that it was amazing, if I got great feedback, then that must mean it's good. And then this thing started happening where I would give what I thought was like a fantastic performance. And sometimes the audience would be very quiet and nobody would come up to, barely any people would come up to me after, maybe one person kind of just being, calm and gentle. Yeah, I was kind of using the audience for reference. It's like kind of feels gross talking about this, by the way. It's like kind of gross. So we don't really want, it's like, ugh, but it's real. And, It's kind of like, oh, if they didn't come up to me, oh, I felt bad. And then after a while, I had this experience because I would, perform a lot where like people would just start to sometimes not come up to me. And or I would like even like release a I would perform something and nobody would make a big deal about it then, but it was recorded and put on YouTube, and then people would come up to me later and say like, "Oh, I really like that thing." And so I'm kind of like, "Oh, I had to just recognize that whatever people are going to experience is theirs, and whatever I'm going to experience is mine. And like, if I felt great, then that's mine, and that's cool. And if they felt great, then that's theirs. If they didn't care, if it wasn't that good to them, if it didn't touch them, maybe they were like distracted. Maybe they just, who cares? Like, that's their business. How much they liked it or didn't like it. Who the hell cares? I get to have the experience that I had on stage. And what I, after performing a lot, what I ended up realizing was like the actual reason I had to be really honest with myself, that the real reason I was there on stage was to have that thing where the audience would be present and their feelings would come up and I would sing to it. And that experience, it was almost like spiritually, it's almost like spiritually making love, like on like a spiritual level to like every person that's present in the room. Not in like an inappropriate way, in like a very respectful, beautiful, like intimate way. It's like we're all just connecting in being human and seeing, and it's just love. And I was like, that's why I'm there. That's, come on, Nirinjan, that's really why you're there. And so that's why, when it came time to let that go, I was happy to do it. Because I was just like, I want to join the fucking masses. I'm going to cut my hair. I'm going to go eat meat. I'm going to go like drink a few beers with people and like just have fun and like say something really embarrassing and like weird and like be embarrassed and then like realize that other people get embarrassed too and just like be a weirdo and like just do that and have people like not like me. It was so good. So it's been so like horrific and also fantastic to just like meet people who have never like heard my music or whatever, and they just like don't like me. They're just like, I don't know what it is about you, but you just kind of trigger me. I don't really like you. I'm like, okay, great. It's like that thing you said really pissed me off. I'm like, yeah, that was kind of embarrassing. I shouldn't have said it that way. Okay,
I love it.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. And like I said, I mean, honestly, coming from that energy, I can't really wait to like really hear and see what else is coming for you. Honestly, like it's like so powerful and like very authentic, and I feel like you're more than ever in your power, although I don't know you at all, but what I know about you, it's just like it, that's my intuition at least. So yeah. And I don't know. I also, again, personal curiosities. Like, do you're familiar with the Gene Keys? For sure, you are, right?
Yeah, I
Well,
got a Gene Keys reading like a couple years ago. It's great.
right.
Yeah, I loved it.
Uh,
Loved it.
yeah.
Hmm.
And with astrology in particular, like, why do you feel like it's a good, I guess, addition to working with people? Like, what does that offer you as someone who is working with someone? What does that provide you with?
I mean, to be honest with you, I'm doing astrology less and less these days,
Okay, okay.
um, and the psychotherapy more and more. Um,
What kind of psychotherapy is it then?
um, I'm integrative, so I use a lot of different modalities, but my primary favorite modality is IFS, internal family systems therapy. Have you seen the Inside Out movies? Inside
The
Out 2 is out right now. They're like
the
kids
Inside
movies.
Out? Hang on,
It's
I gotta.
there's movies.
There is a
If you look
thing
up
in German. Hang on, I gotta.
oh, maybe it has it. Yeah,
Inside Out. Ah, that's the one. Okay. Ah, okay. It's a Pixar like comedy thing. I
yeah.
see. It's actually
But
in the cinema right now.
yeah, Inside Out 2. I just saw it
The
was
second one, yeah.
yeah. Um,
Ah, yes, it's the yeah, it yes.
he's got it.
Damn, like I haven't seen it, but like it's the one where isn't that where it's about like the emotional body inside and in the emotion and what's going on inside of people
Yes,
basically, and
it's
they
like the different parts. Like there's the angry part and the
right.
and the like. Yeah, it's not exactly like IFS therapy, but it's IFS inspired. Like the people who created those movies
Mm-hmm.
worked with Richard Schwartz and his like a lot of his people. Richard Schwartz is kind of the one who created IFS therapy, and
Okay.
it's like an evidence based psychotherapeutic modality. And but it's kind of new, and he kind of made it based on like he was a psychologist for like many years, and then
Mm-hmm.
he really loved the work of Carl Rogers and of Fritz Perls, who Fritz Perls is of made Gestalt, and Carl Rogers made person-centered therapy, and he kind of was really inspired by both of them, and kind of brought them together and made this baby of internal family systems therapy. Also, family, like what is it called? Just basically like family system, like family therapy. There's like I
Mm-hmm.
guess what's it called? Oh no,
Constellation,
teacher would be
constellations.
no. It's just like anyway, essentially like working with family as systems instead of like working with one individual. Like family therapists would be like, hey, we can't work with one individual without working with the whole family, because
Mm.
each person is part of what makes them who they are is the context of the system that they're in.
Sounds systemic, like a very systemic approach. I don't know if it's the same in English, but there's like systemic coaching, I think it's called, or systemic.
Systems theory, I guess maybe is what it's called. I'm
Yeah,
having a
like in
moment.
German, it would be translated as systemic therapist, which is basically saying exactly what you are saying. Like there is no individually existing just individually. Like the context is relevant for
Yes.
everything. Like you cannot, like no one can like exist without context, and therefore if
Yes.
looking at any situation in a personally, you got to take into account the context and system in which it happens.
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So what Richard Schwartz did was like take that, and instead of being like looking at an individual and saying, "Oh, this is where the system ends." Like everything out there is a system and you're just part of the system. He's like, actually, no, it goes even deeper. Like kind of like the person who discovered atoms. It's like we thought the molecule was the smallest thing, but then no, we found out that there were atoms. And so internal family systems therapy basically says that actually there's a whole system of parts inside that are also, that the whole system of parts inside that is another system. And the idea with that is that you kind of have, this is the thing that they represented it a little bit more in Inside Out too, which I thought was great. But the idea with IFS therapy is that you kind of have like your core self, which is like your soul, or like your, they don't like say soul, but really is. I think it's what it is. It's kind of like in polyvagal theory, when you're like in ventral vagal regulation, that's like what you're like in yourself energy. And and then we have all these other just kind of parts that are just part of our, in my opinion, like our nervous system. Like when we go into fight or flight and we get angry, it's like, well, that's our body going into fight or flight. It's an actual biological response. And in IFS therapy, they would say, well, okay, so that biological response that's a fight or flight is like your angry part, or it's like they would say it's like a firefighter. And so that's what they call the firefighter parts, or like the parts that actually are there to protect you. And so if you get angry, it's kind of like if someone's like, God, she just turned into this whole other person. It's like, well, yeah, that's because her, like, her sympathetic fight or flight drive took over, and you were talking to her angry part, not to her. You're talking to one of her protectors. And, or, there's like a managing part who can come in and just be like, oh, okay, well, it doesn't feel safe for me to go out to this social gathering because I could possibly be rejected and horribly excluded, and that would feel like death. So I'm going to not go to this nice social gathering, and I'm going to stay here. And I don't care if I'm lonely, because it's better than being rejected. And, that's like another part that might come in. And so in IFS therapy, the idea is that those parts are there to protect you. Every part is a good part. Every part is there to serve a purpose. But and they're parts of you, it's your internal system, but that your core self energy is the one who knows, how to work with all those parts in an integrative manner to help you be who you really are, and help you to stand in who you really want to be, and has infinite creativity and courage and compassion and clarity and joy. Anyway.
Yeah, beautiful.
I know we've gotten way over time, but you asked about therapeutic modalities, so it's hard to make that one short.
No, absolutely, and it's very interesting, and I could really we could go even deeper with that, some questions there. But anyway, also given that you got places to be, and I want to be respectful of your time, and it's also very late actually already in Germany as well. So
I'm sure it's like nighttime for you. Oh yeah, you must be tired.
Yeah, it's midnight. Yeah.
Forgot.
So yeah, no, it's all good. It's all good. It's all good. It's all good. I'm fine. I'm just what you were saying with the singing. Like you're just emanating the energy, and you're penetrating the energy field in my direction. So like it's all arriving with me here.
I've had a blast. This has been so fun talking to you. I agree. I could talk to you for like another few hours. I mean,
Yeah,
but,
totally.
it's all a pleasure.
And yeah, like I would just ask you, like what are you looking forward to?
I'm about to move just into another apartment. Just in a couple months here, which is going to bring me a lot more financial security, which is going to feel really good because I live in a really expensive city. So I'm looking.
You're in Toronto?
No, Vancouver.
Vancouver, right.
So that'll feel good. I'm looking forward to that on a very kind of zoomed in personal level. I'm also looking forward to all the client sessions that I have in the future, including tomorrow and next week, and I feel really hopeful and excited to meet new clients. And I just want everybody to book. I'm like, everybody, I want to work with you. I want to meet you. I want to, so I'm excited and looking forward to working with more people and filling out my practice and helping people, and just being nourished by their presence and their own growth, and I'm really looking forward to getting back into music organically as that happens. My partner is like so often he's my biggest cheerleader, and he's like trying to support me to get back in but not push me, and so I'm really, my partner's a filmmaker, by the way, and he's really, he's an artist in his own right, beautiful human being. But yeah, I'm looking forward to getting back into music and performing again in whatever way that looks like, because my little artist part inside me wants to sing more. She's ready.
I can feel it, and I can't wait for myself, but also the world to hear it. So
thank you.
Thank you for doing this with me. Thank you for trusting me, and that was beautiful.
Thank you. I'd love to hear your music, by the way.
Hey, beautiful listener, you have made it all the way through. And I want to take a moment to say thank you. And you can do me an enormous favor. It's all I'm going to ever ask from you. And that is to go to your podcast app right now. And if you enjoyed the episode, give the podcast a 5-star rating. If you want to write 1-2 words or sentences, even more powerful, even better. Thank you, already in advance. And also while you're at it, just click on that follow button, on that bell notification so that you never miss a new episode. All of that just contributes and it helps me to increase the reach of the podcast. That means I can attract bigger guests, and that means I can deliver more powerful episodes. So it's a tiny thing. I'm only gonna ask this little favor of you ever, not more. 10-15 seconds of your time, a couple of clicks, that's it. Makes a huge difference for me as a creator. So thank you so much.